Boom! This is gonna be exciting. So I moved all the way from Cape Town. I came to Zimbabwe to meet possibly one of the greatest. If Lee, you probably might be a legend, eh?
Wow. Wow, probably is a good word. Probably. Maybe we'll figure that out by the end of the talk.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
Your titles when you're on radio.
Yeah.
I remember a long time there was Lee K, Captain.
Yep.
Can you elaborate more on these names?
Okay, so actually when I started in 2001, it was Mr. Lee.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Mr. Lee was a fancy name that I got from an artist who was back in the days. He was a rapper. I think he did something with R. Kelly, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, back in the days, he was Mr. Lee. Yes. And I'll be lying if I say there was a real thinking process. Like some would say, it's because it just came, naturally to start calling myself Lee K. Because Mr. at one time became too formal. It became too formal. And in our industry, formality sometimes, like right now I struggle when people call me sir. There are people who now refer to me as sir, simply because at one time I was in some office and they refer to me as sir, and I struggle. I also struggle when people call me Mr. Kandiero.
Mr. Kandiero.
I struggle because since 2001, you can imagine, I'm used to be that person who people can relate to, from artists to listeners especially. They call the radio and they say Lee K, or Leander, or Lee.
Yeah.
So whenever somebody addresses me as Sir or Mr. Kandiero, I struggle. So it was Mr. Lee, which then went to Lee K. The captain, I'll explain it shortly. But some would call me DJ Lee. To a point where I remember I actually had a jingle that was going on about DJ Lee, and but I understood from an early point in my career that there's a huge difference between a DJ and a radio presenter.
Okay.
But it still worked because High Grade and his friend decided to do a jingle for me. I did DJ Lee, was on the radio, big up. So it kind of caught on when people would call me DJ Lee and DJ Lee. And then, of course, I think one title that a lot of people know me for is the captain.
Yeah, the captain, yeah.
And that one does have a history.
Is it?
Yes, that one does have a history because not only do I love aviation, but it also happened, my first job, which was around 98. I was working for Olife, Safari and Tours, because I studied tourism.
Oh!
Yes, I studied international tourism at Rentals College.
Okay, all right.
So my very first job was at a tour company, Olife Safaris. And it belonged to a gentleman who once worked for Air Zimbabwe as an air traffic controller. So himself and friends of his also opened up a pilot training school, Zimbabwe Flight and Aviation Academy. So these offices were next to each other at Fidelity Life Tower in town. And so they also made me an administrator of the college. And there were 4 of them. One was a pilot, the other one was air traffic, 2 of them were air traffic controllers, and I think 2 were actually pilots. And then they said to me one evening, because I would do the administration or the overseeing of the college after work, they sat me down and said, but we have you administrating a pilot training school, but you're not aware of what happens. So would you want to train as a pilot? And I was like, wow.
That was huge.
Yes. And they were saying, so when you're training to be a pilot, for those who understand, you do ground school, which is the classroom-based lessons. And then you go write your exams in Zimbabwe. It's with CAS, Civil Aviation Authority of Zimbabwe.
Okay.
And then you have to go and start flying. You fly solo, you gather your hours. That's how you become probably a commercial pilot. But you have to start gathering hours. So they said to me, this was the deal. We give you the lessons on the house, the ground school lessons. We also pay for your exams. But then when it comes to flights, you can take care of that. I was like, yes, of course. So I did the ground school. Very interesting. I think we were doing 4 subjects. Radio telephony was one of them, which where I mastered it's communication.
So I was
it's communication. You know, that alphabet, the phonetic alphabet, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, right up to Zulu. So I studied because that's how they speak. And also how to tell time like 09 or what. They say it in a very fancy way. Radio telephony, then the mechanics, I think, of an aircraft. The one that really got me, and I knew that when I come to exams, this one is going to get me, because I never done chemistry, was meteorology. There's a lot of chemistry and mathematics there. Then I think there's the physics of flying. Yeah. So there's lots of mathematics there. I don't remember, but it's 4 subjects. I went to CAS, I'd done the ground school, and true to the point, it was the meteorology and I think the physics. The mechanics and radio telephony were doable. Yes, in other words.
Just to
that's what I just wanted to avoid, but then you decided, yes, I did. And the guys were disappointed because I was doing so well in class. And they said, do it again. And I was like, let me pause a little bit, and then I do it again. So, you know, sometimes when you pause, you never unpause.
Exactly, that's the problem.
You never unpause, especially when you take a while. And then in the end, I ended up leaving. But during that tenure, and I have to say big up to those guys. Mike Miradzi, we also had Oliver Faraday, Alois the pilot. I have to say big up to them, because my love for aviation even grew when I did the ground school and also administrative. And guess who I met there? He was one of the students, David Chifunisi. I met David. Yes, I met David before I knew about his music. He wasn't recording then, but I just knew David. And one day I was watching Channel O, actually, Tauya Nai. They were profiling it on Channel O. I'm like, I know this guy. And then it hit me that it was from the pilot school. Yeah, so this is where the captain came from.
The name captain came from.
This is where the name captain came from.
But then how did now radio came in? When?
So I'd always been somebody who loves music and imitating radio. So back in Mutare, I would take the mixer. My brother George and his friend Lloyd were already doing and the disco. Playing at parties and whatnot. And the interesting part is it was a homemade machine. Lloyd was the electric guy. George was the DJ.
Lloyd, your other brother?
No, he was a friend to George. Yeah. So they made up this amazing system in the bedroom, and they were actually going to play. So that's when I caught on. I loved music before, but I caught on DJing. Yes. I remember my first solo by myself. And my mom was scared for me. I was in Sakuba. And I was in Form 2. I connected. George and Lloyd were no longer doing this. And my mom was like, are you sure? And I did it. But then, so my family knew about my love for radio, because I would record on tapes, record myself being a DJ, inspired by Teach Matthias, inspired. Peter Jones was a big inspiration. Fungai Marange, Tsitsima Warire was Tsitsi Jundu back then. Musi Kumalo, Miss DJ, Eunice Goto, those guys inspired. Simon Parkinson Mahobo. So I would imitate that on their machine and record. Listen to myself, give them a cassette in the car, and they would come back and say it sounded good. So it so happened that one day in the Sunday Mail, an advert came out that if you want to fulfill your fantasy of ever being on radio, there was a competition, right? And so my brother called me. I was in Harare, he was in Mutare. He says, look, there's an opportunity. No, my younger brother. He says, there's an opportunity. if you want to be, you've always wanted to be on radio. Why don't you try this? It was 15 minutes of fame. So it was for a soap brand called Fantasy Soap.
Fantasy Soap.
Yes. So what you needed to do, there were two parts of the competition. Either you're going to draw a proposed rapper for the soap, or you're going to be on radio fulfilling your fantasy with DJ Munya and Sophie Chamboko. So obviously, I knew where I was going.
Are you Munya was on radio before you?
Yes, absolutely.
Is it?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
So Munya was actually another inspiration. Actually, more fire.
More fire.
Yes. And so, the guy made radio sound magical.
Exactly.
So this was, and I was like, competition, sometimes people still have doubts about competitions. I was also in doubt with, So I entered. You needed to enter. I still have a copy of the entry form. Yeah. So you needed to answer 3 questions. One about the soap. The other one was, what elements does one have to be a radio presenter? I remember. I wrote, and fast forward, I think about 2 weeks later, a letter came in the mail to say you've made it through the first stage. What? Really? Is this happening? It was a letter. I still have it up to Yes. It was exciting. And so the next thing was a phone call from a man called Nick Goromonda. I won't forget Nick. And he says, you're going to get a call from one of the presenters of this show from Radio 3. God, no. It's not possible. I was working, I'd left Olife. I was working for Medsure Healthcare.
Oh, yeah.
Medsure Healthcare is a company that provides hospital equipment and accessories. And I was there from the beginning of that company. It was the owner, Mr. Kingsley, and from the beginning it was just the two of us in his veranda. Yes, but I was working for that company then, and I'd entered this competition. I was walking home one day, and you would know, Joe, and like many other people, 49652, 49654 were magical numbers.
49652, yeah, I know.
It appeared on my cell phone, and I'm walking home, and I'm like,
what the heck is happening here?
I answered the phone, and guess what? Hi, my name is DJ Munya. Get out of here, Munya.
Inspiration.
And I can hear his voice.
And
he says, you entered the competition, so I've been given a task to interview you. And I'm thinking now he's going to prepare me for an interview tomorrow. And he says, we're actually doing the interview now.
Was it on air?
No, it was not on air.
It was on air, okay.
And he says, we're actually I'm interviewing now as we speak.
Were you walking? Were you sitting?
I was walking home. Interview now. And he asked me a few questions, and then I thought, I have blown it.
Easy.
I thought I'd blow. I thought I'd messed it up.
Oh,
because I'm walking. I'm in shock. I'm starstruck, and I'm confused. I just answered the best that I could. And he says, "Yeah, we'll give you a call." I'm like, "Munya, please. I know this is the end, but I'm happy I've spoken to you."
Yeah.
The next thing, I get a call again from Nick, and he says, "You have now made it to the recording. So you're going to record with DJ Munya and so forth." Is this really happening? Fast forward, I go to Shade Studios, and the man who was recording us recently passed away, and may God rest his soul, Kelly Rusike. He was the one recording, and remember, I'd grown up on the Rusike brothers' music.
Exactly.
There was also Peter Mparutsa. I knew Peter. I met Delani at the same studio.
Same spot, yeah.
They were in the same room, and then comes in DJ Munya and Sophie Chamboko, and we were expected to record. So it was two of us, because we would record in twos. Every day, I think, I would record. I remember I went to record with a lady called Ashley Chanakira. We went there, and then there was now a debate. Who is going to start? And this room is full of celebrities. In the end, you know what I told myself? I said, you know what? I've gotten to this stage. I have nothing to lose. I'm not related to these people. Let me give it my best shot if this thing is going to end up on radio. So I went in and I gave it my best shot. I came with suitcases of CDs, knowing that I'm only going to play three songs. Yeah. And they laughed at me. Munya laughed at me, I remember. And I was saying, you know, I have been rehearsing.
Exactly.
And they said, no, but we've got music here. And I said, please, can I use at least three? And they gave me a chance to do that. 15 minutes, we're done. And then they said, it's going to play on radio. I didn't believe that as well. It did play on radio on a Sunday. I was ready to press record and I recorded. I have the recording up to now.
Lee, that's one thing amazing about you. You have got these like a museum.
I've got everything.
People should come to you.
Yeah, I've got everything. Almost everything, okay. But I heard my voice.
First time.
For the first time
already,
ever. And I'm with Munya and Sophie.
And how was the feeling?
I'm telling you the magic of radio, which still exists up to now.
Yeah.
The amount of people that called me to say Takunzo.
Right.
And they always saying, but I didn't believe anyone of them. Would I know what can they say? But fast forward, this thing went on for months and they had a different recording every week and people were supposed to vote. So people were voting. Obviously, I got my people to vote for me, but there were so many people that were competing for this. I was just trying. Let me fast forward. Come time of judgment, I came out number 1.
Hey.
Yes, number 1, or right on top. And I was like, oh. So it was myself, number 1, a lady called Sharon Petsai, Chubby Chicks, what she called herself.
Yeah.
And then the third guy, Brighton Chitana, the mailman.
Oh, you were the mailman?
Yes. So we were called and then we went and we were asked, do you want a job? And I was like, Titi was the manager. Like,
really? What is you wearing?
On the day that we were given our prizes at Brown and Kinloch, the only promise that we had was Titi's going to come and then you're going to go for a tour at Radio 3. There was no promise of a job. But when the winners were published in the Sunday Mail, Titi got Innocent Chuma. That was another one. I was in the office. 49652 again. I'm like, what? And it says, my name is Innocent Chuma. And Chuma is a big name. The people's champion, the Millennium Man. And I'm hearing that. And he says, I've been sent by the manager, Titi Mawari. You guys won a competition. Are you willing to join radio? I was at the office. The lady boss was there now. The lady boss was now working with the husband. And I couldn't believe it. I said, boss, remember that competition? I told about it. I've been called to Pockets Hill. It was 12 midday and they want me at the office today. And it was like, I end.
Serious?
I went home, went and dressed formally. I was dressed casually, which is radio gear, but I had to dress formally. I walked from Bolodale Road right to Pockets, so it's quite a distance.
I know.
But you don't feel it when you're excited.
Never.
Went there, met Titi. The long and short of it, Titi says, we're about to move to Gweru. Are you guys willing?
Yes.
Are you guys willing? This is 2001. I was like, yes. Yes, of course. We never moved for about 1.5 years because the rest of the team moved in 2001. But Brighton and I were left at Pockets Hill for about 1.5 years. And what we were doing then, we were splitting 2 shifts in a day, 24 hours, 12 hours per shift, just waiting for the radio to break down in Gwe. And we were not allowed to speak. All we were doing was playing music. Until we had to ask, please, can we also speak like the other guys? Then we were given a shift where they'll be doing maintenance in Gwe. And we did a duo together. Peter Johns then became our, imagine Peter Johns, the radio driver. He became our EP because he came from Gweru and he asked to do his breakfast show from Pockets Hill. And so he became our executive producer, overseeing us. And he says, I don't want you guys to do a duo presentation. We want to hear the talents in you. So you're going to exchange. This week it's going to be Lee K. The next week will be Brighton.
And do you remember your first, when you were doing your own show, your first song you played?
I wouldn't remember, Joe. I don't have that recording. I only know that when we were at Pockets Hill, the first time we ever went on, this is now live radio. That was pre-recorded, right? The one that got us in was pre-recorded. All I remember is the first time we ever went on it was on a Saturday. We had a bit of an incident with Joe Hussein. Joe said he didn't want us in the studio. And so we had a bit of incident until he called us back to say, no, Saturday morning pajama party. And then I remember him giving us some sandwiches because we, just to
cheer you up.
But the first person who took a chance on us was Davis Mugat, because he came after Joe saying, and he says, I want you to speak. So we spoke. I think I have a bit of that recording.
Again?
Yes. And that was our first live radio until we got those shifts for maintenance, And wow. The first one was a drive show together, Brighton and myself. They were doing maintenance between 3 and 6. And then Peter said, no, you guys were not bad. We were listening from Guero, but we can't tell. So you need to separate. Yeah.
Then they separated,
And then we got a shift Friday morning.
We shift all this now?
9 to 12. The mid-morning
shift. After breakfast.
Yeah, so we would do that and we would exchange again. This week is Brighton, the next week. And then we took a chance and then we asked, Tsitsi had left as manager to become marketing manager. And so Man Soldier, they take over as the station manager. It was now 3FMA. And we asked him, can we also come to Guero? Because, we're just sitting. And he says, you know what? I can give you shifts, but I cannot fund you to come to Guero. We said we'll self-fund. And so I would go on a Saturday, 6 to 9 p.m. That's when I introduced Wedding Bells on a Saturday evening. And Brighton would go on a Sunday. So for about a year again, we were commuting. Yeah, we were commuting. We loved radio. We never felt it. But then we'd come back and do our 12-hour shows.
But I think that's the drive when something maybe it's your nature. You don't, when you love something you have to go.
The interesting part, Joe, is I had previously, before I joined radio, I had previously gone for TV auditions. When I had already gotten into radio, the guys from TV called me, but I had not gotten onto radio as in they knew me because we were just doing the sit-ins with Brighton. It was just coincidence that they called me and they said, you have made it to the top 10. So now they were saying, I was trying to decide, do I do TV or do I do radio? I love both, but I love radio more. I had the guts enough to go to Tsitsi and say, look, TV. I remember Tsitsi's words were like, you don't even have 2 weeks here. And already you want to do TV and radio. She shouted at me, I remember.
Yeah, but you could have done TV as well. You got the looks.
But she then chilled. In that same, she chilled and said, but you know what, I've done it. I do TV and radio. Go to TV and do radio as long as you don't miss my shifts.
Exactly. They always say that.
So, what was happening now? My 12-hour shift would end at 6 a.m. I would go into the shower, go take my suit, put on my suit and sit behind the controller until 4 p.m. 4:30 actually. Get onto the bus, go home, rest for an hour. The drivers would pick me up and I go start my night shift. I did that for months. But when you're young, you can do this. I was 21, I think.
You had the energy.
I had the energy and I was excited.
Like you're pushing. And on TV, what show were you doing?
So we made it to the top 10 to do the continuity presentation, which is program lineup.
Okay.
So my team,
program lineup. I remember that.
So my team, I remember some of the guys were Precious Mutunzi, Chanki Piri, was doing well in South Africa. Who else was there? Cecilia Mchoy.
Yeah, one of those guys.
There was a lady, her name was Fifi, very energetic. They're going to hate me if I forget the names. There was also her name was Rukato. Yes, I think she was doing modeling at one time. Yeah, it was a team of 10. That's when I met my very good friend in broadcasting and in the media, Beatrice Tonozai. Okay. She was actually supposed to join us, but then she went and joined Zim.This instead of TV. But that's when we met because we were at the auditions. We were actually paired up now, Beatrice, and they loved our pairing. But she never then came to TV. Yeah.
Yes, and I think you're one.
Sobshaw was another guy. Yeah.
You're one DJ who I say supported the Urban Groups from inception.
We did. We did.
Guero, what was happening in Guero when the guys came to perform Guero?
Urban Grooves, I'm going to go on the limb here.
Yeah.
And say, not that they owe us anything physical or tangible, but I will say this in terms of saying that if ever they were to write the history, they owe 3FM / Power FM. And they owe certain individuals.
Exactly.
First of all, I would say, even before I got onto radio, Innocent Chuma, the people's champion.
Exactly.
Salute to that man. Because he took a chance on Urban Grooves before we even started calling it Urban Grooves. I think they were calling it Bourgeois. Yes. And he took a chance at midnight. But he grew numbers then. So salute to that man. But I also have to say, when we started calling it Urban Grooves, we had gotten into the radio station as well. Names that I can boldly, not to say everyone who was at radio then was not doing their job in terms of promoting Urban Grooves. No, everyone was. But there are names that I have to mention. And that's Tony Friday. And henceforth Koza. They know what I'm talking about. The likes of Tatenda Jenami. They know what I'm talking about. Take 5. He knows what I'm talking about. Extra large. The likes of Gomiso. The likes of TBA, may God rest his soul. The likes of Diana. The likes of Dirk Knox. The likes of Rocky. The likes of Leonard Mafumo. The likes of Trinity. They call themselves Trinity then. Everybody. Those guys would go to Harare from Gweru just to go and get music. Maskir is another one who knows what I'm talking about. Those guys were so passionate. They came with lots of Urban Grooves music, made us listen, and we went in. I was doing the chat show then. So I really needed to get the best of Urban Grooves. And we pushed Urban Grooves. We played Urban Grooves. Remember, our station at one time even broke the rules and we became 100% local content.
I remember that.
It was difficult because we had good music, but we also had not so good music. But we needed to fill in 24 hours of local music. So you can imagine. So when I say that the Urban Grooves era owes Power FM, led by the great Admirata Derera, with the likes of Ioana Innocent Chuma, Bridget Gawanga, at the helm, DJ Scott, Tony Friday, henceforth Koza, and all this music was feeding into the chat show. So I can safely say, as I sit here, there are players or artists who I played for the first time. Because we would listen and then we'd say, wow, this is a great song. Trevor D. I remember looking at a CD where he was wearing kind of a jeans, blue, and he had his one leg on the wall. And I listened to a song in Zim.This say. We were singing about a mother, and it ended up on radio. I remember also taking one CD, listening to a song called Ndinjere, Bethen Pasinawa. It had a number on it, and I thought I was calling Bethen. But on the other hand, a guy answered the phone. I'm like, this is the end. And he says, my name is McDonald Chidawayenzi. I'm the producer. I'm like, but you know, we became friends with McD. If I understood with McD, time was not McDonald. But he had definitely produced that song. And that was the beginning of his career. And we saw the likes of Victor and Temba growing. And then Tembelani branching out, Victor going the other way. We saw the Excuse, we saw Alexio, we saw a lot of artists branching out. And then because Take 5 and Sibo as Chamembe, it was not even called Chamembe, it was called That Squad Studios. But because they branded the Chamembe volume so well, people started calling it Chamembe. They gave a lot of encouragement to other producers, the likes of Tony G. Tony G worked some magic from Gweru.
Gweru always produces these guys.
Tony G was producing the likes of Madiz, Nasty Tricks, School and POZ, and we were churning out great hits. And so that's when the birth of other studios came through. And we saw a lot of amazing artists coming through, and other producers now coming through, simply because of the work that some of these guys are putting. And when you got a platform, if I produce something good, it's going to be played. And that was us as Power FM. 100% local content.
You see, you told me one interesting story before we came on the set.
Yeah.
How was your relationship then with possibly the biggest artist, or one of the biggest artists in Zim, Winky D, then and now?
My firstborn son at one time thought he was my brother. Because he literally would be always at my house along Chiremba. And then Winky would record a song and come to my house and say, King. Up to now, when I do meet him, our meetings are rare now. I would want them to be more, definitely, but he's busy. He's busy. But you'd call me King. And he would come, Takaipa, Bachne Jean. He would come and say, I've got a new single, but I've also done a jingle that resembles that song. So he did about 4 without me asking. Because what had happened before Winky blew up, because Winky really blew up near the album that had Rokeshe.
Yes, yeah.
And that's Godo. That is the album that really put Winky D on the map. Before that, Winky D was doing patois.
Yeah.
And he had like Poor People's Devotee and a couple of other, and was featuring on some rhythms. Yeah. And I remember then the people who took a chance on his music were myself and DJ Squilla.
Squilla, exactly.
To a point where at one time I was seated at the Power FM studios, and a guy came looking for me. And I met this guy, never met him, and he says, I've actually come all the way from Harare. My name is Bartholomew. I think that's what he said. From Black Lab Studios. I didn't know the guy. And he says, the reason why I've come is I've come with a packet for you and Squilla. It's a narration of Winky D's beginning up to now, because you've supported the Winky D brand. And this is where, so we've come to give you this package. So it's a video. I still have the disc up to now, where the guy was playing in Harare Gardens to about 5 people. And it narrates how he grew when he was playing in Chitungu's aquatic complex. Now he's filling up the aquatic complex. And it's my ghetto youth. He had small dreadlocks, but he was already now firing. So Bartholomew says, I've just come to appreciate the work that you have done. And I remember one time he came to Gweru and he was saying, Nkoma. He was calling him Nkoma. Swimming pool. Can you be my one-day manager? And I remember booking him in a hotel, escorting him to the swimming pool. And from there we became friends. So we then moved back to Harare. This way he would drive to my house. And a lot of and I was doing the chat show again then. So a lot of them would push on the chat show and the songs would blow up. Yeah.
But sometimes we realize with my relationships with artists and DJs, or sometimes just relationships.
Yeah.
When you are the smaller man, you are there. But the moment you grow bigger, maybe as an artist, maybe like supporter, you don't really look at them the same way. Has that ever happened to?
It's happening a lot. Like I said, even the relationship with the men right now is not as tight as it was before. But I understand. He's a busy man. It would be good for us to hang out again. But I understand he's got a busy schedule. But the only thing that I would never want is for the friendship to end. The likes of Oyuana Trevor, Sani Makalima, XQ, Rocky. We've got great relationships, but we don't mix and mingle the way we used to back in the days. We literally grew up together, because when we were young boys, no families, and then you suddenly realize when you meet again, you're Tatukura again. So our kids, of all these guys that I'm talking about are almost the same ages. Yeah, because we then got married around the same time, and our kids are almost the same ages. Yeah, it would be good to do a reunion and, you know, foster these relationships. But sometimes I feel that your greatness is not just based on your fan base, but it's also based on relationships that you built when you were growing. And you always need to fuel those relationships.
True.
You should never forget those roots. And this is advice that I'm just giving to any artist, any presenter as well, because artists and presenters do the same thing. Their job is almost the same.
Yeah.
It's based on audiences, listeners, if you want. So it's just a piece of advice that I'm giving.
But do you have artists right now who, like, you talk to, like you guys always spoke, or who are not popular now, or we can say Anzala Pera? You know what these guys say?
First of all, I don't agree with that term. I don't agree with that term. The Americans do it so well.
Yeah.
You can check out MC Hammer with no hits for the past 20 years or so. But you check him out at the Grammys, you check him out at BET, they're honoring him. You check him out in a movie, they never lose their people. South Africans do that as well.
Yeah,
they honor their legends. People who contributed something, because you must understand what music does. Music marks certain periods in your life.
Exactly.
Where you can, when you hear a song, you're like, I was a teenager. I was growing up. So we always have to respect those people. So I don't agree with that term. But you asked me a question, and there's some outstanding artists who I still have a great relationship with. And one of them who stands out, and I have to say salute, is Leonard Mafumo. But outstanding. Rocky is another guy who, if I give a call today, you come running to say Nkoma. Alexio is another one. I'm not saying these are the only ones. I think Diana Samkange, now she even calls me Nkoma. We were like I'm saying, we're almost the same age. I suppose it's a recognition of the contribution that we had to their careers as well.
Exactly.
And look, I can't mention all of them.
Yep.
But I have a bit of history with all of these guys, from Terera Mkwadi to Nesto to Alexio to Maskiri to Winky Diwa Chachataura, Sniper to XQ, to all of them. Think of them. We have a relationship. I'm privileged because I know these guys we would call the old school, if I can call it that, in terms of local music. But I've been on radio for a long time, that I also know the new school. And some of them are my friends. We're not age mates, but we look up to each other, we talk, and you can just pick up the phone and say, hey, this is what I'm doing.
Let's go back to radio. You hold, I think, the record of being on radio the longest, am I right?
You mean in Zimbabwe?
On one show, in Zimbabwe.
Yes, absolutely.
What show did you
24 hours.
24 hours talking.
Yes. So this was the height of HIV. And then we were not even calling it HIV. You know that, Joe. AIDS.
AIDS, yeah.
And then we were diagnosing with our eyes. But people were really dying, and people were really ill. There was no... ARVs were not so popular then. In fact, they just come in, I think. And not a lot of people had access to them. So it had always been my wish to say, I need to do something to change the narrative, especially the stigma. And also to try and do something that could bring the attention of, we needed more ARVs in the country. And so I came up with an idea, how do I capture people's attention? Do I do a marathon? Because you know how people do marathons and people sponsor. And then I said, what about a radio marathon? And I went to my boss, Maim Kandla, and she was seconded by Tinashe Chinami. I went and I presented, I'm like, are you crazy?
24 hours.
And I said, I don't only want to do a 24-hour broadcast. I want to fast while I'm on radio. And I want to do a dry fast, no water, no food. Because this was kind of coming from a spiritual level where we needed to save the nation.
That's huge, man.
National AIDS Council jumped on it. My good friend Beatrice was with Surf-AIDS. They jumped on it. IOM jumped on it. And I went into studio Sunday night, because I think it was a Monday, the 1st of December of 2007, which was World AIDS Day. That's when I was doing I went into studio 12 midnight, and I left the studio the next day at 12 midnight. All by myself in the studio, and the whole show was laced with issues to do with HIV. We took a chance in the first hour, 12 midnight to 1 a.m. We took a chance, and we were not really believing it. But what we had said is we want people to call and pay tribute to their relatives who passed away through AIDS. It was not spoken of then, so we didn't think it was going to happen. But miraculously, people called and they were sending texts on that day. Around 7 p.m., Joe, I need to tell you, I was getting weary, I was hungry, I was tired. I didn't think I was going to make it to 12 midnight. But something happened at 8 p.m. The then Minister of Health, Dr. David Parinya, came in as my guest, and he told Noneba and Tinashe to say, tell Leander that as I'm coming in, I'm not coming in as a minister. I'm DJ David, and he should refer to me as that. I tried it the first few minutes. It didn't work. It just felt weird. But I'll tell you, he's coming in and then encouraging me and having an interview for an hour gave me more energy and strength to say I'm doing something worthy. So 8 to 9 we were together in the studio. I still had 3 hours to go. But that energy to do the next 3 hours came from that rejuvenation from Dr. David Parinya. So I salute him. I had a couple of guys coming from TV, the late Dave Emberton, Ian Zoma also came down. I remember Tracy Sibanda came through. Oscar Pambuka was amazing. He kept checking on me. And guess what? At 12 midnight, he came in with a TV crew. He was there until 12 midnight to film the end of this historic thing, if I can call it that. It earned me an Auxiliary Chimsoro Award and some money.
That was amazing, man.
So, but I look back at it and I say, how did I do that? But it was the season, I suppose. We were in trouble. The nation needed healing. The nation needed education on stigma, on the disease itself. We also needed help in terms of medication. So we needed to do something extraordinary. And we did it. So many thanks to the support from everybody. Because at one time, other presenters would say, no, I know Zobo. And I said, that's the point.
Exactly.
That's the point. Because some people were listening to say, I know Gone. But while they were listening, they were also listening to the information. Yeah. So it happened. So many thanks to the leadership of Noneba Mkandla and Tinashe Chiname and the rest of the guys who allowed me. Because I think the presenters at breakfast moved away, midday show. They allowed me to do that, and I achieved it. Yeah.
And now I have to tell the people one thing which happened in my life was at one point I was his MC on his birthday. Do you remember at your house in Braeside?
We're talking about radio.
Yeah, obviously.
Yes, let's talk about radio.
When we're going back there, I was just trying to take my flowers.
Birthdays.
I was just taking my flowers. Because at the end of the day, me being an MC for a legend.
As long as you're not going to give details about the day, it's fine. Yes, you were the MC, Joe. Well done. Thank you so much. I appreciate you people who threw a surprise party for me. And thank you all for coming. It was fantastic. It was amazing. It was amazing.
I know you don't want me to talk about it.
Yes. My mother-in-law and other relatives from my wife's side, they came together and said, let's do this for this guy.
Exactly.
And then they came together with my family and they joined hands and they surprised me. It was a real surprise. But let's end there. It's fine. Well done, Joe, for being the MC. I still have pictures, by the way.
You still have pictures? Okay, I'd love to see.
And the video. I do have the video. I have it.
You always have something.
Always. I can show it to you after this. I have the video.
All right. No, go back to after the gig.
Yeah.
But now, if you look at radio now, in radio then, when you guys were young and you were on the helm, busy on it, what is it still the same with radio?
Radio has changed through world over. It has changed a lot. Radio is much more interactive. Remember when we were listening to the likes of Peter Jones, the only way you could actually speak to Peter Jones was dedication time.
Exactly.
Happy returns.
Yep.
And Peter would speak to you for a few seconds.
Just that.
Yeah. The longest that you could speak to a presenter is when you were a kid and you were calling into Junior 3.
Yeah, and you're talking to James Maridadi.
James Maridadi or Otis Fraser.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for some of us, it would be a few seconds. Hi, would you want to say happy birthday to?
Then you go.
There were no texts then. There were no cell phones. When we got in, cell phones had started, but they were not really being used for that purpose. So it wasn't as interactive as it is now. And you must also understand that audiences themselves, because of social media and whatnot, they've also become part of the radio experience through WhatsApp, Facebook, and whatnot. So they're also very knowledgeable. You cannot go and misinform. Remember back then, the presenters, it was one presenter in the studio, and it was so musical, and it was based on music, because music was difficult to get. This is why Peter Jones, Kudzima Rodza, all the Teach My Child would come with exclusive jams. Yes. And it was amazing. And we would come and record, with cassettes. Music was difficult to get. Now, because of the digital world, the listener can get a song before you get it as a radio presenter. So it's not music based. It's now more conversational.
So it's more challenging now.
It is. You see now that breakfast shows, drive shows, you have 2 or 3 presenters because we want to hear differing opinions so that people can become part of the discussions. That's the whole idea. So radio has changed. But with change sometimes comes some disappearance of things that we used to think were good. It also comes with it some good things as well. But yes, then that's where you start thinking of standards and whatnot. But because the audiences have changed as well, and the consumption of radio has changed. You will see that, for instance, Zimbabwe is consuming radio a lot in their own languages. The music itself is probably 90% local. Even when you go to a party today in Zimbabwe, a wedding today, you are hardly going to play an American song, a British song. You might play some South African song or some Niger song, but you're going to hear requests about Japres, Ababa Harare, Iwana Winky. You're going to hear requests for Wana Kilati, Wana Shinto, Holy 10. So that's how radio has also shaped the consumption of local music. Go to restaurants now. A lot of the food that's being served is local dishes. So the mindset of people has changed. Which is why people are comfortable now consuming radio. Ishitwa ne slang, ishitwa ne shona, proper shona, isindebele. People are comfortable. Back in the days, radio, especially Radio 3, Radio 1, it was strictly English. It taught us great English. We learned to pronounce words, but Rasiana now, Joe. Now, Buddha Shine. There's always and I think it recently came out. It's called the Zimbabwe All Media Product Survey, Zim.This, that always tells us who's doing well and who's not doing well in terms of radio, TV, banking sector, cell phone companies, mobile. But when it comes to radio, you will see the top 10 nationally are people who speak vernacular. The likes of Tilda, Ndundu, the likes of Patsani, the likes of the people who speak Richmond Siakurima, they always feature because people are comfortable now consuming their own media in their own languages, and they can relate and they can even interact. So that's how radio has changed.
But I think now it's more fun, and you guys are looking at things like podcasts coming in. I think it also gives a challenge to radio, YouTube, Spotify, and all these other digital channels. They're giving so much challenge to radio.
Social media is a big challenge to conventional radio, conventional TV, conventional newspaper. It's a big challenge. But what a lot of progressive media houses have done is, instead of hating it, instead of avoiding it, they've also integrated the digital world into what they do as newspapers, into what they do as television into what we do as radio. So you can now, I remember when I started Star FM, one of my imaging pieces or jingles, if you want to call it, was Lee K on Star FM radio, so good you can watch it.
Oh yeah.
Then it was just a metaphor, but it became literal in the sense that you can actually now watch radio.
Yeah.
On Facebook, on YouTube, while it's being done, you can actually watch radio. So this is what radio has done. It has integrated what would have been a competition, but they've taken the competition, integrated into the broadcasting field, and it works. It works.
Why did you move from Poa FM to Star FM? You had, I think, 10 years.
10 years.
Poa FM.
Yes.
And we had a party.
We did.
And
you know what? The surprising thing, Joe, even my boss then, Bridget Garanga, who came to the 10-year party, actually believed that, and a lot of other people believed that I knew I was moving. I'll tell you the truth. I just celebrated 10 years for the sake of celebrating 10 years. The guys at Zim Papers had not called me. I did not know there was going to be Star FM. But it was just coincidental that after a few weeks, the guys called me.
Because I thought you knew.
I did not. I remember even after the party, she came, she was a guest of honor, but she called me in the office and says, I don't know what's going on. What are the developments? But luckily for me, I got a call up. And it was through Teach Matthias. And he says, Bonin.
Yeah, he always...
Bonin. And he made me to go don't I. The long and short of it, yes, I sent in my audition because he says I want an audition to take it to the bosses. I was called in for an interview at Herald House. It was my first very intimidating interview ever. I think there were about 8 gentlemen in suits asking me about my history at radio, what contribution I was going to have, what ideas I had for a new station. And so the long and short of it again is that we then joined. The people who had been called in, the experienced people included Comfort Mbofana, Maya Tadira in the lead, Teach Matthias second in command, Comfort Mbofana, Bongai Zamchia, who did the Breakfast Club together, remember? We had DJ Munya, we had Innocent Chuma, we had Steve Vickers, the late P.Y. Zuda, and then Otis also joined us. But we were coming into a sphere or in an area where the idea was not just to have experienced and known. Ayati was also part of the team. But they also wanted to intermix or mix it with new talent. And these were the likes of the unknown then. Nikki, KVG, Owen, Ola7, Patsani, Ndumiso, Napster, the Radio Master, DJ Mox. They were unknown. But the idea was to have new voices together with experienced voices. And remember, it worked like magic. 2012, June 25, Star FM came on air and it was magical. It was magical. We made history because after that long, it was the first station after ZBC to go on air. And we made history. That's another part of history that I can register in radio.
But I felt there was a bit of a friction between Star FM and Poa FM then.
There was, and it's pretty obvious. I'm not sure if this died because we are in competition. But I think what then happened is, over the months, you realize that the cake is too big.
Exactly.
And people have different tastes. Yes, some then went and stayed with Star FM. But you realize that the cake is too big. Tastes differ. Some people like Power FM, some people like Star. Remember, after 2 months of Star FM, ZFM also came on board. And they also had their piece of the cake. And then after that, 8 commercial radio stations were introduced. Diamond FM, Skies Metro, Breeze, Airway, 98.4, Ya FM, 8 commercial radio stations. Again, competition. And then after that, 14 community radio stations were introduced. After that, 9 campus radio stations were introduced. Do you know, Joe, that Zimbabwe right now has 39 licensed radio stations, most of which are on air? That is how things have grown from 2012 to 2023.
From having Power FM.
4 radio stations. Yeah, we had, and I'm always laughing about this, that I don't know whether they were but they decided just to call them by Radio 1, Radio,
Radio
2,
2,
Radio 3, Radio 4.
Yeah.
Until, of course, they changed to Radio Zimbabwe, 3 FM, Power FM, National FM, and Sport FM, which is now Classic 263.
Oh, Sport FM is now Classic?
Yes, now Classic 263.
Are you at Classic now?
No, I'm doing my own thing now.
Doing your own thing?
Yeah, I'm doing my own thing.
I wanted to ask you, it's said when people like you who have got the passion for radio, or who has been, doing radios for so long, and the ethics, when you lose such people in the mainstream, right? And I know people have been complaining about my DJ Badarwa. What, like, no, we have to pay these guys for us to be played on radio. I hope you're not one of those guys who are.
I think, look, I'm happy you brought it up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this does not just happen in Zimbabwe. It happens, unfortunately, and I have to say unfortunately.
Yeah.
Especially in Zimbabwe. Why do I say especially? It's unfortunate, especially in Zimbabwe. Because when you go to progressive nations, artists are actually signed up by business people who are into recording studios, recording houses, and they are signed up so they don't have to pay the producer to create a song. Right now in Zimbabwe, we still have that scenario where if an artist wants to record a song, they approach the producer, they pay for the video, they pay for the song. So if Lee K is approached and this guy's got a new song and it's a good song and he wants to be on radio and Lee K says, pay me more, we're just taking more out of their pockets. And that should really not be happening. But like I'm saying, it's a world phenomenon. I wish it could come to an end. But the other reason why I like the fact that you've brought it up is my 21st year, 22 now, in 2023 as a broadcaster. Because I haven't stopped really broadcasting. From time to time you will hear me on radio. But I challenge any artist, any artist who's going to watch this and say, they can come through and name places and name amounts if they can. It's something that I told myself I was never going to do. I do have artists, yes, who have then taken me and said, let's sit over a drink. Thank you so much for what you have done. But never for us to say, Wunzandiritse music yako. Look, people who are going to watch this will probably say, he's trying to be a saint. But I'm just saying what I have done and what I decided not to do. Because we need to grow. And the only way we can grow is to support them. Exactly. I'm always telling artists to say, you don't take a drink, because some of the artists don't know a drink, and then you look at the amount and you think this does not buy a drink.
Exactly.
This is like a lifetime of drinks. I'm always saying to them, when you have blown up and you're filling stadiums and you're a brand, call me for the drink and we can go for the drink. Yeah.
And sometimes I think it also kills artists in a sense where they feel they don't put so much effort in making the music because they know that they don't bother.
But what happens, Joe, I think I also have to come in there and say, you can't keep a good song down.
Exactly.
And you cannot change a bad song into a good song because it has been played, because somebody has been paid. Yes, it might get airplay. But the good thing about a lot of radio stations now, including the Sky FMs and I think the ZFMs and even ZBC stations, is we have also gone into playlisting. Which means this playlist is decided from a central point in the radio station. It's no longer falling on the decision of the DJ or
producer.
So playlisting is also another way that was introduced on progressive stations, and Zimbabwe is taking it up.
So now it just comes out.
It hardly happens. Maybe some can find ways, there's always a way, but it hardly happens that the undeserving get played. Of course, when it comes to choice and putting music out there, some songs fall through the cracks. Good songs, they never make it. Because radio stations sometimes are overwhelmed. Sometimes the packaging that the music comes through is not attractive, so it's ignored. And remember, when people are also choosing music, because radio also needs to be attractive, they tried and tested. Like today, if Lee K gets into music, and you have 10 artists, 10 producers, 10 DJs, and 10 producers, 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 and 10 producers And there's the new jar praiser. The radio stations will clamor for the new jar praise because they're tried and tested, do well for their radio brands. Lee K needs to work extra hard for him to be recognized, which is why I'm emphasizing that the packaging and the so-called managers also need to do a lot of work. Going to radio stations, introducing themselves, knowing who does what. A lot of times, Joe, it's sad that someone call me. My name has always been tricky. My name has always been tricky. Someone calls you and then they say, Magadi Sicilian. The artist, country manager or artist. Already you know that this person does not listen to radio.
Doesn't listen to radio.
But they are management of an artist. So already radio. How are they going to create a relationship with the radio station? Exactly. How are they even going to break through to the other radio station? Ask Utoteria. One going to Pamuno player Pepe, Pamuno player hip hop, playing Pepe, Mkoma Leander. And I'm thinking the hip hop show is mocks. It's not me.
It's not you.
So to know that Anna knowledge.
Yeah.
If you are keen and you want to be on radio, you're a manager and artist, at least get to know about these radio stations. Yeah.
You know what's happening.
Build relationships.
Exactly.
It's like I was talking to you about relationships that we build with urban groovers and dancehall artists.
Yeah.
Life is about relationships.
Exactly.
Life has never been transactional. A lot of people now boast about it, say it's no longer transactional, it's now relational. It has always been about relationships. It has always been about building relationships. None of these backdoor relationships. Build relationships. As a manager, introduce yourself to the station manager. Introduce yourself to the music guy. Go and tell him that on this album, it will be good for you to start with this one. Hold on to this song. Start with this one. Introduce this one. That language and that tactic, they don't know that, the managers. The artists don't know. It's possible. It is possible. Some even have listening sessions. We're inviting radio stations to come. It's not bribery. All you're saying is come and listen to my music. Tell me what you think before I release it. Build relationships with your radio platforms. And right now, even with social media people, build relationships with them.
Engage.
Absolutely.
Well, some, they actually even on social media, they don't respond to their fans, their followers.
Management, Joe, having a manager is not a luxury. It's a must. Someone should manage not only your social media, but they should manage your brand, the way you look, where you hang out, how you talk, how you present yourself. I remember watching Diddy when he introduced that single with Nicole Shezim. He spent, I think, about a week flying from state to state, going to clubs, VIP, just to introduce a single. So if a big name like Diddy still needs to put in a lot of work to introduce one single, what more of you, Lee K, who's starting? Or has got one album? You still need to do a lot of work. Make appearances, the right appearances. Go to newspapers, go to social media bloggers, introduce yourself. Let them know about you. Let them know the music. Right now, the danger that we also find ourselves in, music is now also being handed over via email. So there's no contact. There's no interaction. Someone sends an email and they think it's done. It's finished. You needed to bring physical CDs. So at least you'd put a face to the DJs, to the presenters, to the station manager, at least. But now because you're emailing, there's no connection, if I can call it that. And that's putting a lot of artists in danger.
Yeah, that's at least so. I'll tell you. But now you as a DJ, or can I say as a former radio DJ, I saw on YouTube you're doing something. Are you trying to raise your own leakages into the industry now?
It's interesting that you talk about my own leakages. Let me take you back and say I started identifying and grooming, nurturing, and giving a chance to presenters as early as 2007. I remember back in Gweru, big names that we had a chance to identify and even train. The likes of Glenda Takachicha, Renee Sakarombe, so many other people came through to Chirukugwe. I remember when he came back in Harare, Smiley came at the same time as Butterfly and Aura through our hands as well. When we went to Star FM, I mentioned names like Onamox and whatnot. I had a part in building those names.
Those guys,
the likes of Honor Patsani, Owen Madondo, Ndumiso Due, and also introducing concepts on radio that sold them and sold the radio stations. I will not be shy and tell you that even as far back as Power FM, I remember introducing the 9212 connection, Wedding Bells. I remember doing the top 40 countdown. I remember naming the Power Chat show and presenting it. I remember doing Your 60, which was very popular. When I came to Star FM, I remember naming the Star Hit List. And at that time, I was presenting the Star Hit List and also naming and coming up with the gospel grades. So at that time, I was presenting 2 chat shows. On Saturday, I was presenting Star Hit List. On Sunday evening, I was doing gospel grades. I remember introducing the 326 Express from naming it. It took me 3 months to name the 326 Express. And taking Ora and Patsani and coming up with the concept that came out with the likes of Onakombi Quest, All Bodies Quest, which was very popular. Grooming Patsani to be the person that he is today. Then we did the 326 Express with Grace until when it was time for us to step down, introduce Patsani and KVG. I remember doing that first lineup where we introduced Mox to the TXO, Nikki and Napster to the breakfast show. Then we moved Napster to the hub because that's kind of his style. I remember also coming up with the concept Yesungura Wednesdays for Ndumiso, because I'd spoken to Ndumiso and he's a session musician. He's also a sound engineer. And I said, so why don't you do a Sungura show? And I named Sungura Wednesdays, gave him that opportunity. Came up with Mugango with Ola 7. So a lot of the concepts and the presenters, the likes of Wana Loshto, the likes of Wana Folake, the names that you know today, a lot of them have come through these hands. So no, I'm not trying to raise leakage. I'll talk about Diamond FM, another historic thing that happened. In 2015, I was asked to go and introduce a new radio station to my own people in Mutare. And that was fantastic. And so the likes of Anababa Tapso Ikaranganda TV, Wana Jabulani Mangiz, Wana Prudi Puru, Wana Tinachi Zilole, Wana Mtape Siduna, from the auditions right through to spotting their talents, training them, nurturing them, they've gone through these hands. And what I'm just trying to do is I got a chance in 2001 through a competition that I spoke about. I was given a chance. So I would love to pass on that chance to young, passionate people who also want to be on radio. Even if you're not young and you feel at 60, you still want to be on radio. You come, you show it, we'll groom you, we'll train you. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm just still identifying talent, grooming them, training them, working with radio stations to then second them to radio. And radio stations can also call me for trainings and whatnot. That's what I'm doing now.
I think that's a very noble thing to do, because people are, sometimes you just get raw talent on radio. You get raw talent and people are not trained, but you doing this, I think it's one amazing thing. Before I leave, I think you and me, we need to do a part 2.
I think we should.
I
think we should. There's too much to talk about.
There's so much to talk about. I want to play a game before I leave.
A game?
Yeah. It's called Kill or Keep.
Kill or Keep?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you 2 names.
I hope it's not tricky. Okay.
Right? So I'll give you 2 names. It's either you kill or you keep. Right? You tell me which one you're going to keep and why. You're killing the other one.
Wow.
So the first one is, let's see. I've got Glenda versus Rumbi Moyo. Who are you killing and who are you keeping?
I worked with Ruby on the Top Training Countdown, which was sponsored by Buddy. And I learned a lot of things from her. She gave me CDs before she went to America, by the way. I still have them. Glenda, I worked with her on the 9212 connection. And just recently, before I left Zim Papers, we were working together, I as a producer for her show. So I cannot really literally, but in the name of playing a game, I cannot kill any one of them. Well, I would rather keep all of them, but I'm happy for Rumbi because she has moved into a different part of her career. She's not on radio. She's into PR, doing big things for NGOs. So for that purpose, I'm going to have to go with Glenda without killing Rumbi. Okay. But I have to go with Glenda because she's still on air. And she's doing amazing stuff on Capital. So we'll go with DJ Shorty for that purpose only.
KVG, Partisan.
I'll kill Pat. Kawani. You know why I say that? Patsani Chumfana Cham. And he has made me proud. But KVG holds a very special place in my heart. When she came for the initial training, I'll tell you up to now, I don't believe there's so many people who have celebrated me, and I appreciate that. But in that first week at FIBA, Tichitanga Star FM, I don't believe that there's anyone who has ever celebrated me the way KVG, before I even knew her name, before anyone else in that house knew who this young lady was, because she must have been 20 or 19 when I first met her. Anyone in that auditorium would remember KVG celebrated me to a point where up to now I still feel it. And then we grew a very special relationship. She at one time was my producer for the Gospel Greats, and I then became her mentor. I still am. So so for this one, Party can
go.
Yes.
Okay. Last one.
Yes.
Witness and Squealer.
Erida ngombo mire beside. You know why? When I was starting radio, remember I told you Taifamba borrowed the road in our pockets. Before he even knew me, I think I had a Hyundai, a blue Hyundai. Witness akandona chifamba kanifana ndomziwa. No, he actually took me into his car, made a U-turn, wanted to say pockets. And throughout the years, he groomed me. They groomed me. He's one of those big mentors in my life. Erda Squila, we came in at the same time. So I need to for my shoulder Erda. But I so respect Erda Squila. He's a talented presenter.
So
but if I kill up, I was chumen.
Okay, igwe.
So those who are resurrect him but to the same WhatsApp group can
I know. Lee, I should say thank you so much. Thank you very much. I think you're an inspiration even to myself.
Thank you.
You know, the conversations we always have are deep.
Absolutely.
You know, you've been a friend, you've been a brother for the longest time. You taught me a lot, even in the music industry. You taught me a lot. Music, radio, and
I think the feeling is mutual. You taught me a lot, and you introduced me to a lot of people. I really appreciate. I don't forget, and I don't take that for granted.
And I would like to thank you. Thank you so much, and you've got a beautiful family, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it could be Maya.
You mean my family?
You will. I'm gonna be bigger. You've got an amazing family, man. Thank you guys, and thank you so much for everything.
Joy's been great.
This has been Kept Connect with your uncle. Bye guys, I'll see you on the next show.